I want to share with you a poignant story that teaches us valuable lessons on how to respect people. It concerns a very rich man and a beggar by the name of Lazarus. Throughout his entire life, this wealthy man was incredibly affluent. He was wealthy and took advantage of everything life had to offer. He ate the most delicious meals and decked himself out in priceless diamond, gold, and silver jewelry. Although purple dye is expensive and is typically used by royalty or significant people, this wealthy man disregarded the cost and lavishly spent to wear the most magnificent purple clothing. He possessed an enormous mansion, the largest in the town. He utilized it for extravagant feasts with exotic foods and extravagant parties for his friends. He never thought twice before spending money. The rich man had everything he could have ever desired, and many were envious of the lavish life he led. Not everyone in the city, though, was as lucky as he was. Lazarus was a homeless beggar who lived just outside the wealthy man's lavish home. Lazarus had a life filled with anguish and suffering and only had ragged rags to wear. He was sick from living on the streets, and he had severe sores all over his body that never seemed to get better. Wild street dogs that frequented his residence would visit and lick the wounds on his body. When Lazarus did locate some food, the neighborhood dogs would fight over it, which only served to increase his hunger and weaken him. I feel so weak and so hungry. Even though I have tried my best to live a good life, here I am. Lazarus would frequently ask, if only someone would feel sorry for me and spare me just a scrap of food. Lazarus watched all day as shipments of good food, jewelry, and other riches arrived at the wealthy man's home as he lived and begged outside the east gate of the mansion. Look at all these wonderful gifts that come and go daily from these wealthy homes. Lazarus would think, oh, if only I could taste even a bite of the fine foods that they must be eating. Lazarus dreamed of eating just one crumb from the rich man's supper because he was so ravenously hungry. The rich guy would pass Lazarus at his front gate as he left to conduct his business in the city. When Lazarus saw the rich man's wealth, he would beg him for a few scraps of food, saying, "Please, sir, could you spare me just a scrap of food? I'm starving to death." But the wealthy man didn't seem to care. He continued to live in luxury without a care in the world, despite the unfortunate Lazarus' daily cries for help. "Even though they pass me daily, not a single person from these elegant residences even gave me a glance. To them, my hunger and pain are meaningless." Even though we essentially live next to each other and are both God's children, Lazarus would bemoan. Lazarus's life of destitution ended one night. Following Lazarus's death, his spirit left his body. The wealthy man also passed away that same night. Lazarus had endured much pain for many years, but it was now over. One of his forefathers and the first of God's chosen people, Abraham, welcomed him when his spirit arrived at the gates of heaven. "Where am I? Who are you?" Perplexed, Lazarus inquired. "You have arrived at the gates of paradise, my son, so welcome." Abraham greeted Lazarus with enthusiasm. "I am Abraham, one of your forefathers and the first of God's chosen people." While Lazarus was welcomed by Abraham at the entrance to heaven, the wealthy man was dropped into the depths of hell, where he was encircled by pain and fire. The rich man watched as Lazarus entered paradise and called out to his ancestor Abraham for help from the flames. "Please, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Allow Lazarus to dip his finger in water and come down here and cool my tongue. These flames are so hot, and I am here in agony and wish to cool down." But Abraham was unable to assist the wealthy man. "My son, do you not recall when you had everything that life had to offer, while poor Lazarus here had nothing to his name? While you lived in complete luxury, he endured suffering every single day. He resided right outside your front door, and you had plenty of extra money. But when you had the opportunity, did you ever pause to ease poor Lazarus' suffering? No, you didn't, and so now you can never cross the great gulf between us. The gap between heaven and hell is too great, and you must live a good life to enjoy the kingdom of heaven once you reach the afterlife," Abraham explained. When the wealthy man realized how he had abused his life of luxury, he started to worry for his family. He pleaded with Father Abraham to send Lazarus to his father's home. If Lazarus speaks to them, perhaps he might persuade them to alter their behavior and lead more moral lives in order to spend all of eternity in the kingdom of heaven. Unfortunately, my son, your father and brothers already have the word of Moses and all the other prophets before them to provide them this identical message. Thus Abraham was once again unable to grant the rich man's request. And yet, they haven't paid attention. But if they witness Lazarus ascending to life to deliver this message, they will be sure to pay attention and alter their behavior. Abraham, however, reassured the wealthy man, saying, "My son, if they do not listen to Moses, if they do not listen to the prophets, then one man rising from the dead will surely not make them listen." Abraham then reunited with Lazarus in the heavenly kingdom after leaving the wealthy man to face his fate. The tale of Lazarus and the rich man is thus concluded. Rich man has nothing but sorrow in the hereafter, whereas Lazarus has an eternity of contentment and pleasure. Let's talk about the lessons we can draw from what transpired to them. Even though the rich man enjoyed every luxury, he showed no regard for God or compassion for Lazarus, one of his fellow humans. Yes, after we pass away, we can no longer count on the things of this world to provide us peace and satisfaction. The only way to guarantee that we will dwell forever in peace in the kingdom of heaven is to lead virtuous lives and to show compassion for others.